Vivek is a seasoned learning and development professional with more than 2.5 decades of experience. He has helped Pan India roles handling training and development, spearheading large scale training interventions. Since May 2019, Vivek has been associated with Avas Financiers, leading the training and development initiatives.
Right.
So Vivek, as you know that we'll be discussing on shift in the long-term L&D strategy framework due to COVID. I'm sure you would agree with me that COVID has been a reminder that an external force can wreak havoc, with our lives and put all our plans in a spin. Uh, Honestly, no one could have predicted the epic proportions. The pandemic has scaled and its impact on every aspect of life. Needless also to say, the business world has seen, and had reconfigured and reboot several of its paradigm to deal with the transform scenarios. I'm sure you would have seen the ramifications in the HR broadly and in L&D specifically. So I would like to use this as the backdrop to get to my first question of the evening. How is L&D function coping with COVID aftermath? Please share your experience in your own organization, as well as with your with your experience, when you're talking to your peers and friends from your own network.
No, absolutely, Hardik. Thank you for having me on this dialogue. I think it's a very welcome initiative where I'm sure the public at large can benefit from some of the insights which kind of emerge. Obviously, COVID has had an unprecedented impact, but I would like to argue that it has accelerated some of the trends which were already there. So whenever an epidemic of this proportion actually happens, so even in 1917 when the Spanish flu happened, some of the trends which were already there, they get kind of accentuated and accelerated. And this is precisely what has happened due to COVID. Some of the things in L&D that we are witnessing right now maybe would have taken 5 years, maybe even a decade, but all that has been compressed in around 1.5 years, and we are seeing the impact right now. If you ask me as an L&D professional, I would say, though there has been widespread distress, and I'm not taking anything away from that, but purely from a learning and development perspective, it has been a blessing in disguise. Because obviously one thing is that it has, you are sitting in Bangalore right now, I am sitting in Jaipur, and we are conversing like this. So this is, I mean, I don't want to highlight that, but that has happened. So almost all coaching which is happening, almost all training which is happening now is happening virtually. So one of the big, things about L&D interventions used to be cost. And the cost element, one of the biggest cost element was not the training element. It was the travel and the stay. So I remember with our MD and CEO, I was having a conversation last year. So there for 1 year, we had done some management development programs. And when I was just presenting, he was asking, okay, what is the per participant cost? So I presented the per participant cost, and then he kind of challenged and said, Vivek, you are not taking into account the travel and the stay. So we went back, I checked with the travel department and then came back. And then he said, how we can reduce that? Because that was a humongous cost compared to the entire other cost that we were incurring as a training function. The biggest cost element was travel and stay. And the challenge to me by the MD at that time, Mr. Agarwal, was how we can make this manageable. And I remember before the epidemic struck in February and March, I was roaming around and looking for certain places where we can make people stay and lodging and so on and so forth. So that is one thing. So that cost has gone absolutely got dramatically reduced, which enhances the scope. The second thing is, was it difficult? So when we transitioned, because as soon as this happened, when Prime Minister Modi announced the lockdown, the chief business officer was on a call with me saying, can we start something? So we were planning to launch a program from just in April. So the March was drawing to a close, and for financial service industries, March is a very critical month. So there were plans which were there that we were planning to launch in April. So he was there. As soon as this lockdown happened, can we start doing something next week onwards? And in a jiffy, a couple of days, I was in touch with IT and we got Zoom license and everything. So moving in that space, and actually training function became an important function to ensure employee engagement during the pandemic. So we established a training studio here in our head office. We spent a considerable amount to get the best equipment in terms of the video camera and everything, and the interactive board and so on and so forth. And through that training studio, we started an initiative of Monday morning learning hour, which has been going on continuously for the last 1.5 years. Wow. Every Monday, despite every challenge, every Monday morning there is a learning hour which is there in Aavas, and we connect with more than 280 branches across, and there is some learning theme. So it can be behavioral, it can be process oriented, or it can be even the senior management rolling out a new initiative or a new product. But this, so what I would like to believe, the training function played a kind of a cementing role in ensuring that employee engagement did not dip. The employee morale, some of the departmental heads were in touch with me, Vivek, can we do something for purely to enhance morale, and which we successfully did. So in short, and finally, I will culminate by ending by saying that just like COVID has changed our viewing habits. So today we see Netflix or Amazon Prime, and we have all become addict. I mean, I was earlier addict also, but a lot of us have become addict of Netflix. And what is the biggest thing about Netflix, or the Netflix way of seeing, is that at your convenience, you can watch any program that you like.
Absolutely.
And this is what has become true for training also. So we have signed up with edX. So Aavas has signed up with edX, which is the world's leading online learning platform. So we were in conversation with Coursera, edX, and Udemy. And finally, for some certain reasons, we went with edX. And today there are, there are employees in the IT department, in data science and accounts and so on and so forth, who are doing great courses from the premier institutions of the world, like like the MIT, like Harvard, like IIM Bangalore, and so on and so forth, at their own convenience. Absolutely. This is Netflix of training which has happened. And it will dramatically change everything that we think about in terms of learning and development.
That's amazing. Netflix of training. I would definitely use this in one of my talks and in my articles.
Give credits to me, but definitely go ahead and use it. Let's make it a catchphrase.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. So while while I'm listening to you, and when you speak about how excited you are, with the current way of learning, which has been implemented, which has been forced upon us, and it has, it is blessing in disguise, absolutely. Do you think by any chance we would move back to the pre-COVID way of learning, which is the classroom training, or would you like to stick to the existing one, which is the online way of learning?
So my answer to that is that it would be a hybrid.
Okay.
So the model which is going to evolve, which I see evolving right now, is a hybrid model. So right now, if you see the lead story of India today, is that people are now vying back to get to watch movies in the theater.
Theater, yes.
So even the single screen theater which were lying empty before COVID only for like years, they are suddenly back in business. And why? Because one is nostalgia. Second is, just like watching movies is it's a communal experience. So we have all watched the Amir Khan, Shah Rukh Khan, Salman Khan, Akshay Kumar, and big budget of Bahubali. I remember going and watching Bahubali on screen. So when you watch these kind of spectacles, it is a communal experience. And what goes missing when training happens, when people are sitting in the Bermuda as I am sitting right now, and with a shirt on, is the communal experience actually goes. And from a training perspective, from a learning perspective, peer learning is absolutely important. So a
Yes.
lot of learning is not by the facilitator, as we can, we can attest to that. It
Mhm.
is the facilitator playing the role of a catalyst and ensuring that peer learning happens. Now, this is something, though obviously now in Zoom and some other platform, there are breakout rooms and some technologies which have come, which is exactly what I was saying, that
Mhm.
there is an acceleration which has happened, but still there is a yearning. So what has happened, for example, in Avas process, what has happened is from August when we started, when we got the go ahead, okay, let us start doing some physical programs, and we launched an MDP program, and now we are doing a learning leadership development program. There is a huge yearning within people to come and just be where there with them. And when the senior leadership went and engaged with them, there was a palpable sense of excitement. And one of the feedback that I got towards the end of the program was that people were saying not only about the content or the learning or the facilitation, they're saying the fact that they could come together and be with people. They could interact in person with their senior managers and so on and so forth
Mhm.
after 1.5 years of doom and gloom. So I think that is an important, what I can say, uh, that is an important element that we should not overlook.
Mhm. Mhm.
However, obviously cost, and even for the learning and the leadership development program that I just spoke about, I am getting mails. I just saw a mail where the price fare was 14,000 something, and I was, before this call, I was on a call with the head of the department, should we call this guy or not. So I mean, because there is this cost which
True.
we can't wish away.
True.
So that is number one. Number two, when we started training programs after COVID through Zoom and other mediums, we had reverted back to the lecture method. So I was an assistant professor of management. I came in training in HDFC. Through the first trainer program, we understood how to become facilitative and so on and so forth. I'm talking about 20 years ago. But then I, I reflected to my horror that we were again reverting back to the lecture mode. So we had to learn and relearn and unlearn.
Mhm.
And I myself enrolled into a training program to how to make online training programs more interactive, paid out of my own pocket. And then I got the entire training team of Avas, senior sub training team members from Avas to attend the program so that we can make it interactive and experiential. And by using Mentimeter and breakout rooms and quizzes and assessments and so on and so forth, there is a learning arc which has happened. However, so now today, if you ask me, I can say to you, Hardik, that anything and everything that was possible physically can be done virtually. Anything.
Absolutely.
So that is number one. But the number two thing is that many things which were not possible physically are also not possible virtually. So where you and I and people like us and people in the training fraternity will have to really re-engineer. There was a favorite book of mine, Re-engineering the Training Function. So where people have to re-engineer is to think that what are some of the elements of learning which were not possible physically, which are not possible virtually, which will make the hybrid model work.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
hybrid is that there would be physical programs also, and there should be, and there will be the learning curve, the reinforcement of learning, the pre-learning, all that can be done virtually to a great extent, which was not possible 1.5 years ago.
I think I I wouldn't less agree with you on this one, and that's the industry tone at this moment. While I'm talking to various people, and they've been having the same view that it is going to be hybrid. Virtually people are excited because there are someone in the remotest area also getting trained, which is amazing. Uh, which also brings up the fact that technology is going to play a major role in in order to deliver this. And I would also like to kind of focus upon technology, and I have few questions related to technology. But before I move there, because you spoke about virtual, because you spoke about hybrid model and all, I would also like to understand, uh, because it is virtual, and obviously everything would come with with pros and cons. So while virtual is effective because you are able to kind of reach you're able to kind of reach a wider set of audience, you're able to kind of cut down on the travel and the stay cost and all, but it also comes with a lot of challenging aspects. So what do you think when it is when so according to you, how's work from home impacting your L&D strategy, or work from home is a factor at all for Aavas?
Not necessarily now, because Aavas was one company, because you have to understand the nature of our business, and also the nature of our customer, the customer segment that we operate in. The customer segment that Aavas operates in is in typically tier 2 and tier 3 cities,
Mhm.
and these are underserved markets. So unlike, let us say, metro kind of an customer who are tech savvy and so on and so forth, our customer, virtually we have to go to the customer. And when I'm saying going to the customer, they may not be tech savvy. They all have mobile, but they may not be tech savvy. Number one. Number two, therefore, our field force. So when we say relationship, our field force, the relationship officers, we have 3,500 relationship officers who have to fan out, go, and then collect documents, etc., and do the credit appraisal also that we have to do, has to be done on the field. So yes, we have innovated. There is what we are, lot of things which we were doing physically, we are doing virtually. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that training strategy is always subservient to the business strategy.
Mhm.
Training strategy is there to serve the business strategy, and the business strategy that we have is to go to the underserved market and create an opportunity there.
Mhm.
And,
Mhm.
and therefore, yes, we can leverage technology, and we will leverage technology, and we are leveraging technology. But at the same time, we have to ensure that the physical element is also there.
Okay.
So yeah,
Okay.
that
So, but you would also be having learnings, right? Because while I was focusing on the challenging aspect, and work from home and learning.
so
You know,
therefore work from home and Aavas is not that big a factor. That is what my point was.
okay.
Yeah, because we kind of bounced back very fast.
Okay.
Almost all our team, almost all our team, entire organization is doubly vaccinated now.
Okay. Okay.
And so that is number one. Number two, we did work from home. Obviously, during the lockdown, we were working from home, and we were using WhatsApp, and we were using Zoom, and we were using every technology at our disposal to do whatever we can. But we bounced back very fast.
But
So
was
as
it
soon as the
difficult that
opening
time?
happened, unlike an IT company, what I'm trying to make you appreciate is that unlike an IT company, where work from home can be a real option. In
Okay.
Aavas, people have to go out in the field.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that
So,
that's where so we are a finance company. So we are not an IT company. So we had to perforce, and as teams were moving out in the field, even during time when the branches were not operating at full capacity, our
mhm.
teams were operating at full capacity. Let me be clear with you,
Oh,
because actually
I,
Aavas was growing during
exactly.
the
I think
last 1 year, 1.5 year during the pandemic. Aavas as an organization was growing humongously, and we ended up adding more than 3,000 employees. So, uh, uh, so work from home is not really a
okay. It wasn't really a
constraint for us, and neither is it is an option, to be honest.
great. I think I hear this from a lot of BFSI microfinance companies wherein it's a similar story. So that's really great, because a lot of FMCG guys or retail guys, when I'm talking to, they have a lot to talk when it comes to challenges that they are facing, while you can get a trainer, and you could get those batches, but it becomes extremely difficult to get employees put on their camera. It's as basic as putting on their camera.
The
And
training, Hardik, has been virtually till now. Till August, we were doing, till end of July, we were doing virtual trainings only. There was no physical training. But I was just responding ki work from home was not there. We
okay.
bounced back fast. We ensured that everyone got vaccinated. We tracked it. Everyone had to get doubly vaccinated, and then only come to office, and then obviously start working. So that's what I was saying. Training till now is, till August was virtual, and now it will be hybrid, and going forward it will be hybrid increasingly.
So let's talk on the technology front, because this is a very, very interesting topic, and there's a lot which has been written around it. A lot of mergers and acquisitions are happening in this space recently, since the time lockdown has really happened. So if I was just reading up, today itself, in fact, one of the article which was talking about that, the game-based learning market is expected to experience tremendous growth. Okay. So if, and which is obvious, if you see, gaming, mobile learning, social learning are the new trend, which no enterprise can afford to stay away from, given their audience has changed completely. And with the country-wise, the countrywide, or the countrywide spread, or the globally, scattered employee base, if you have, especially due to the work from home options available for most of the companies right now, companies can no longer get their employees to sit in the classroom for learning. And as you were mentioning, that most of the learning is really happening virtually, and so is the case for a lot of them. So more so, as the audience demographic changes to millennials who lives in a digital world, and I'm sure the enterprises have started to realize that very strongly, that they will start to fall behind if they are not using digital means for disseminating learning. So they will have to move from the traditional learning to digital learning, I'm sure. So what are your thoughts on game-based learning? Do you think companies are open to adapt the new ways of learning, or are we still at an early stage in India?
No, absolutely. I am sure. So we are at early stage, no doubt about that. I have myself explored and tinkered with game-based learning. So I am a learning evangelist, and I am a votary of learning. So I keep exploring, and whenever there are opportunities, which I recently did, I exposed our training team also with that. So my concern there is a little different. Does gaming work? Absolutely, yes. Can people get engaged? 100% yes. Do youngsters are completely hooked to games? My son is hooked. So obviously they do. So there is no question on that. My concern is a bit different. I always believe, and I've been believing this for last so many years, content is the most important thing in training. The design of learning, how you design the content, that needs to become a catalyst for the learning which needs to happen. Number one. Most of the, to be very honest, I've been very disappointed with some of the games that I've seen. The reason for that, it is just a game for a game's sake, or maybe to create an activity. Even during physical training, I was never a votary of just using an icebreaker or maybe an energizer, which has no correlation whatsoever with the training which is happening. And people would just use it, and I would see some of the trainers doing it, and the participants sitting there and wondering what was that all about. If you make senior people, hop like children, and trainer thinks that yes, he has accomplished something great, I don't think that was the intent at all. So this is the same malaise which is afflicting most of the games also. Games are there, but what is the intent of the game, and is it fitting in the learning content that you want to really drive? So there, what I firmly believe is content is king, in the sense that if content is an applicable content, if there are practical insights which you are providing, because at the end of the day, you have to ensure that training is for ensuring higher productivity. Absolutely. There is no other reason for training. We are not a university. So we are not about human development. We are about human development, but we are about human development in an organizational context. So until the learning which is happening is having a discernible impact in terms of enhancing the person's skills or abilities or giving some practical insights, which otherwise he would have taken maybe months to get. And then because of that acceleration, he's able to perform better. That is the only and only reason why training should happen. And if that is the only reason why training needs to happen in an organization, and I completely believe that, then any game, any kind of, so instead of game, what excites me more are collaboration tools. So when I say collaboration tools, because as I mentioned earlier, peer learning is very, very important. So it is, even in game, if there are ways where teams come together, they learn together, and there is an insight which gets generated, which they are able to hold on to, which is tangible. This is not ephemeral. This is not something that will just evaporate after the training. People will feel good and then they will go back and they will forget what it was all about. But if it is tangible and they go back with that, that is what is important. And that needs real hard work. It is not so easy. Just we sign up with a gaming companies based out of US or Spain or South Africa and ensure and think that training will happen because it is the in thing. Therefore, we should do it. No, because it is going to fall flat in the face. It will, if it is not cultural specific, people will not be able to relate to it, and people will be twiddling their thumb. Maybe they will be enjoying to a certain extent. I have seen games. I was in a webinar on games and I participated myself. And there were some games like pictures you have to just put in the sequence, let's say. I'll just give you an example. And it is I'm just trying to illustrate a point. And people did that. And some learning the facilitator was trying to bring. But at the end of the day, what is it that is tangible which they will take back? I did not sign up. Because just to introduce a game in a program, instead of that, when I have seen programs come alive virtually, they have come alive when very strategically activities have been used. Like Mentimeter is a good tool which comes to my mind. Quizzing through Mentimeter, or so it's reinforcing some learning. So a concept has been shared, and that concept is being developed, and the learning is getting checked, and people are engaged, and you can see that. You can see through body language that people have become engaged. And yes, I know it's a challenge sometimes to get people to get their video on, but you make them engaged, they will be engaged. Body language will show, people will open their video, and they will go back and they will apply that. So when trainers say, or when facilitators say, or when training departments say that people are not interested in this learning and people are not opening videos and so on and so forth, it is easy to point a finger to the participant, but 3 fingers are pointed at us. So how relevant have we made it? How practical? Because ultimately people in organizations, they are very smart. If you give them something which is working, they will hanker for it and they will come back for more. But if you give them inane stuff, if you give them just general gyan and concept, boss, they are not going to open their video. They will look at their mail and they will revert to their mail, because they are prioritizing. And what if you are sharing something which according to them is not a priority? No amount of mandate can make it a priority.
Absolutely.
So I never go to the chief business officer saying, because he is very much willing. He says, let's make it a mandate. Let's make this a mandate. I said, don't make it a mandate. Let's make it, let the learning be evocative. Let people come, enjoy, earn, learn, gain insight, and they become the ambassador. They tell their peers and their colleagues that boss, बहुत बढ़िया program था, बड़ा अच्छा लगा, and all that. And then more people sign up for the program. It is easy to mandate.
Great. So I think I actually agree with you, because specifically I have been seeing a lot of, I've been talking to a lot of gaming companies, doing a lot of demos, wherein, we are offering a lot of gaming solutions to clients. So, obviously internally we are working on on that platform, but externally also because I'm quite interested in this space. I'm trying to understand, meeting a lot of a lot of millennials, who are actually coming up with different solutions. So it's interesting. But yes, as you rightly mentioned, what is important is basically the content which goes into the game. So while game looks like the new thing, okay, the new age solution, but at the end of the day, content is king. So it has to be great content in order to engage, and thereafter, obviously, you would see the outcome coming out of it.
That requires a lot of hard work, Hardik. The point is that, I mean, I'm not saying it in a derogatory way, but most of us in training and development, we are very smart. We don't want to do too much hard work. So, so we are lazy also. Like smart people are lazy. So
Love
if
it.
something, yeah, if something comes which is like easy and we can plug and play, we are all game with okay with that. But that's not what it is. It
I
takes,
agree.
yeah.
I agree. I agree. I think at least on the technology front, what is working right now, and in fact,
But technology
like,
is an enabler.
absolutely, it's an enabler.
On Zoom, you can have a very boring program. On Zoom, you can have a great interesting program.
True.
The Zoom is just a platform, and the platform is evolving. So as we have seen in the last 1.5 years, platform is evolving.
Absolutely.
So and more can be there. 100% yes. Can we play a role where we ensure that more evolution happen? 100% yes. But we need to be clear in which direction that evolution has to happen. What are the tools that we need?
Agree.
We
Agree.
make it clear. IT people are enablers. They will make it happen.
Exactly. So I think that leads to the next question that I have as part of my list. So if you see right now, amidst the new virtual workplace that we have, which experts, and obviously, the virtual workplace and the normals, it's a new normalcy that we are really talking, and which experts have predicted, that it will be around for quite some time, because of the current situation globally, which has also accelerated the need of reskilling, of talent. Following the online working module, many organizations have opted for online skilling, training modules and programs for its employees. In order to make this experience as seamless as possible, learning management systems have emerged as viable options, and I'm sure you would agree to this, because last time when we was discussing, you had few things to talk on the LMS bit. So I would like to kind of ask you this question, that what is your take on this topic? How are you managing the learning experience seamlessly?
So till now, as I admitted to you yesterday in our conversation, we have not in Avas, we have not been using LMS to a large extent. We are now working on it, and we will launch. We will be using it. In my earlier organization, where I was heading trading and quality at Max, we were using LMS considerably to a large extent. And it was from that perspective a slightly more evolved, that way. My concern about LMS again is, when we talk about customer centricity, user, we have to keep the user in mind, and we have to keep the user at the center of it. In LMS, the technology is for training. For we are the user actually. We don't look at what the ultimate user is. So my point there is that, and till now my experience has been that most of the LMS that I have encountered, it is made for us. How we can ensure that we have the right data, how do we ensure that we are putting the this into this, and so on and so forth. Can we get the right dashboard, because we have to show the dashboard to the stakeholders. So the entire focus on the development of the technology and the platform is how it serves us. I don't think we have paid too much attention to how it serves the end user.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
yeah, because ultimately the end user, they need to, value is very tangible. If I get some value from my mobile, if WhatsApp is giving me some value or some tangible value I'm getting, I will be using that app. And if I'm using that app, in 3 steps, if I am not able to accomplish what I want to accomplish, boss, I will uninstall that app, or I will not use it, it will go into disuse. So the point is, are we concerned? Are we focused that way on our end user? Is LMS an app for our end user where in 3 steps, is it easy to navigate for them? I don't want to use a public platform to berate any, but even edX for that matter.
I'm enjoying the conversation because it's a very contradicting views that I'm receiving it from your end, because whenever
They
there's
are
a
true.
conversation, it's a the conversation moves in a very different way. This is a very unexpected response. So I'm thoroughly enjoying, and it is interesting to see some different views, right?
Absolutely, because otherwise it is all a echo chamber. Please understand, Hardik. Echo chamber. All of us sit together and training people. We start berating. They don't use it. The stakeholders don't care about it, etc., etc. And I've been into many multiple forums like that. But ultimately, it is not about being an echo chamber. You use an app if it gives value to you, if it is easy to use, easy to navigate. I use an app because of the same reasons. That's true for our end users. But most of the LMS is not designed that way. Even a company that I signed up with, I'm not going to use a public space to berate. But even, and don't quote me perhaps on this, even edX, difficult to navigate. I myself was struggling to find a course, and I will write a mail today on that. So you have to make it easy to navigate, choose, and if I'm signing up edX as a platform, and if I'm struggling, I can imagine someone else who has signed up and we have issued a coupon, how easy or difficult it would be to get that course and just start working on it. And don't quote me on that widely.
I am not going to quote you on this, because any which way this video is going to be there on social media for consumption, and I'm sure the L&D fraternity will take.
Yeah. So my point is that care and focus there, that we are making it easy for our end user to use and get value from.
Which is a very valid.
For LMS, this is not true, Hardik. LMS is made for you and me.
True. But it is also an enabler, right?
So it's an enabler, but what I'm saying is for an end user, what's they will, and we keep berating. We keep saying, the usage is this percentage, uses this percent. There has to be a reason for that. We signed up in Max. We signed up with online training company, and which was a big and a huge amount was given, but the usage was very, very small percentage. And after a year, maybe 8 months later, MD was questioning me, "Bola Vivek, you were the first, you were propagating it so much, and this is the usage percentage." Because again, the point was that users were not finding value. It was difficult to navigate. It was difficult to search courses in, and the courses were not really pertinent, and most of them were American, and people could not relate to it. And then we come back and say, "Bhaiya, why are they not using it?"
But don't you think things have changed?
100% they have changed. They have 100% evolved. This example I am quoting 7 years ago.
Yeah, so, exactly.
Yeah. So the things have really evolved for the better largely, but my quibble with LMS still remains. So this lament with LMS is still true. And that is perhaps the reason why it has not become such a great tool as perhaps it can be.
So while you've been around for a pretty long time.
Yeah,
so,
I've been around. I know I am an aged guy now.
I wasn't referring to that. It was largely because you have the HR community that we have. These are your views. So are you saying that the peers around you are not exploring LMS, or are they exploring LMS? And do you have certain reasoning?
My thing is that we have to appreciate the context in which we operate. Most of the technology and even the content comes from US. I have nothing against that. But we have to understand, you have to look at the people that are working in the company that we are operating in, and what is their cultural background, what is their context, what will they find appealing, and what will be a turn off for them. So something which will work for TCS or Infosys will not work even for Flipkart. Forget about Avas.
True.
But what is happening is that it is one size fits all strategy which is being followed.
Okay.
Bhaiya, we have taken this. Now, whether we go to Infosys to sell or whether we come to Avas, you just take this. Won't
Interesting.
work.
Interesting view, actually, something very different. So I'm enjoying the conversation because I'm getting to.
And I hope it is true. I mean, I would like to believe it is true also.
No, absolutely, because you have different views, and you have your own reasoning, why you believe so. My last question for the day, because I think we are scheduled for an hour, and largely I finish in 30 to 40 odd minutes, but this has gone beyond 45, all due to your I think the information that you're really sharing is it's amazing and exciting, and that's the reason I think I'm having follow-up questions. But the last question for the evening, which is very important, I've been reading out a lot on the employee well-being, which has been concerning to an extent. So if you see, one of the biggest contributing factors, to an employee's productivity has always been their well-being. When employees are run down, stretched thin and overworked, their productivity, level really declines. So the workplace, the workplace well-being can be really affected by many aspects, including too much of screen time, life stress, anxiety, lack of exercise, and poor physical health, or maybe even the bad work-life balance. So according to you, what measures do you think employers could, or rather, in my sense, should take to make sure employees are healthy as well as productive?
Oh, that's a very profound question and a point actually. And I'm happy to share that in Avas we are doing some stuff in this direction. For example, the MDP, the Management Development Program, a 3-day program that we launched in the collaboration with Jaipuria Institute of Management, it has a session on happiness at work, which is delivered by Dr. Prabhat Pankaj, who is the director, and he's a published author. He's published in Economic Times and Times of India. And we are organizing next to next Monday a program on happiness at work by Dr. Prabhat Ranjan and Mr. R. Anand, who is a published author in the area of happiness. We have done through our webinars sessions on powerful engagement, how to keep your energy up, how to be a corporate athlete. I have done sessions on that. And so the message that we try and give, which we are trying to impart to our team members and to our employees, is that you are a corporate athlete and you have 25-30 years of work in front of you. I mean, and therefore you have to balance various kind of energies, and as you rightly mentioned, physical energy is the foundation. So your physical energy, your mental energy, your emotional energy, and also your spiritual energy. So doing meditation, just to give an example, every Saturday we have a webinar on Yog Nindra, on yoga, done by experts. So on yoga and Yog Nindra. So I mean, that's one of the things which is now possible, which was earlier not possible, that we can use technology to reach out. And even the Chief Business Officer, Mr. Ram Naresh, admitted to me a few days ago that he every time logs into that Yog Nindra session on Saturday. And there are some other senior managers also who actually do that. Our CEO is reading a book on Ikigai.
I'm too reading that book.
Yeah, absolutely, Ikigai. And even our CBO has read it. And we probably will do a book session on Ikigai and how to enhance happiness and engagement and so on and so forth. So there is definitely this message that we can give, and we can deploy every tool and every platform at our command to ensure that our employees feel connected, feel engaged, and enhance their happiness quotient and well-being quotient.
Great initiative, and I'm glad that you're taking care of your employees. They're the most valuable asset so that we could really have.